first.
Brilliant idea, man.
I think you can buy those like on Duluth Trading or something. And the price is always.
I saw the,
places.
what was it, Jack Nicholson or whatever was in one of those movies where he was watching
someone on
a
television
movie
had 'em too.
laying
Yeah.
down because he had those glasses with the mirror. I ended up getting those. Those are badass because you can completely lay down and read a book. Or watch anything or whatever. It's just the weirdest thing.
Cause the second we had Maria fought it. And then we
Does
got.
Jim normally go by his time?
Great
Or
size.
because that's,
I admit, like in our living.
I'm going by my watch.
I'm already gone. I'm
Okay.
already there.
I'm going,
I
my
think
watch is the
this-
same
I
as
think, yeah,
this.
I think that's,
That must be like internet.
that's
time,
tied
because what
into
I'm
the
on.
atomic thing, so,
We'll go by that.
yeah.
See if we can get out of here by 8.
Yeah.
You gotta watch that.
Oh, I like
Yeah, yeah, go for the Phillies. I don't even watch football, so. I have no clue. Well, that was a joke, Dan. But I still don't. Then it might score some touchdowns tonight. You know what? If you combine those two, I would watch it. If somebody on the football team could carry a bat, I would so be into that. You'd have a beater and a quarterback and a receiver, just go at it.
I don't watch anything till there's playoffs.
And you've got to have like the hockey goalie right
Yeah.
there
Oh,
guarding home plate.
On a patch of ice.
Yeah, that's a good one. That would get my attention.
That would be awesome.
That's a good one.
Like running a couple screws out.
Yeah, it's not like
4 or 5 screws and that's usually how an upper is, you know.
Just stand made if he's ready and then hammer it.
Yeah, I'm gone, okay. I'll wait. All right. I'm not even gonna ask him. What'll last?
Oh,
That's right.
It's all up.
I was ready for it.
New chairman. Welcome to the October 12th, 2022 East Hempfield Township Planning Commission meeting. We could stand and pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Before we get started, Nate, I would ask Mr. Boltby and Mr. Spangler to serve as full voting members tonight. And then our first order of business is going to be approval of the September 14th, 2022 meeting minutes. I don't think we have a quorum of the people that were here from that meeting to vote on that. Do we need to have a quorum from the people that were at that meeting to vote on it?
I believe if.
In the past, I think we have tabled that,
Not in attendance, reviewed the.
reviewed them, they can,
And then reviewed the minutes, they could, but I doubt.
I'm fine with that,
Yeah.
but
Otherwise, I would suggest you wait too.
we'll just table it.
Offer my one comment on the minutes regarding the Root Solar final plan. I believe we made a recommendation to waive some fees related to a deferral on the roadway improvements, even though it wasn't something that was technically requested. We discussed it as a group and then decided that we were gonna make a recommendation on that. And I don't see that in the,
And I will look at the YouTube video and verify and update it.
Do we need to take a motion to table that? Or it's not really an action item, we can just table it, right? It's tabled. All right. Yep. Our first action item this evening is the daycare services VR zone amendment. Are you with the applicant? Okay, floor is yours.
So
Or were you gonna present that?
I can give a short little thing if they want to give some background.
Yep.
This text amendment was put forth by Hempfield Family Child Development Center.
They'd like to add daycare services, family and commercial to the VR zone. And so they added those two business uses to that zone and added some specific criteria in Article 5 of the zoning ordinance. It's fairly simple and straightforward.
Does anybody on Planning Commission have any questions or comments on the amendment or for the applicant? Anybody online, Nate?
No.
All right. No
Mr.
question.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to that we approve and recommend adoption of the daycare services in the village residential zoning ordinance, the text amended, subject to all staff and engineering comments.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Byrne and a second by Mr. Caldas. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you have it, 5-0. Thank you. All right,
It was a mistake not to have it there to begin with.
all right, moving on to our second item, Lancaster Heating and Plumbing Final Plan.
Member number 2, also here, professional design construction. Can you go to the microphone over here?
There we go.
So I believe some of the members were here. We were here a couple months ago during the sketch plan phase to request a waiver of preliminary plan. So we have at this point submitted land development plans, gone through several reviews and addressed all the outstanding comments from DMA in their review letter. So just a brief overview, reminder, the project just involves a small addition to the rear of existing Lancaster Plumbing and Heating Building at 1184 Enterprise Road. It's a 2,600 square foot addition on the back. In addition, where we will be adding some proposed additional parking spaces and paving area at the rear and reconfiguration of some existing doorways. There's currently some overhead doors that will be removed to allow for more at-grade access into the building. As I mentioned, we have gotten general recommendation from DMA. There's a couple administrative comments remaining, mostly related to the cost opinion. We've also requested a couple waivers and deferrals associated with the plan. So if you'd like, I could go through those individually, or if you have any other questions on the design at this point, we can discuss that.
Anybody on the Planning Commission have any questions? Why don't you just go over the modifications real quick for us?
Sure. So a couple of these are generally all related to either sidewalks, curbing, frontage improvements, or some revisions to landscaping, just based on where the project is located and kind of a minimal site area we're working with here. So the site, as I mentioned, is at Enterprise Road. There's not existing sidewalks, curbing along that section of street, and it's mostly other industrial commercial buildings along that stretch. So the first waiver request is related to paved sidewalks being provided on both sides of the new streets. Or that was a deferral to allow the sidewalks to be installed at a potential later date as requested by the township. DMA has recommended a fee in lieu of for that amount for providing future sidewalks along the frontage. The next waiver request or relief requested was related to some alternatives to the landscape buffering planting requirements. The reasoning for this is a couple reasons. The surrounding properties are all located within the enterprise zoning district. or similar industrial, commercial type properties. There's no existing screening along the western property boundary between the building and the property line currently. And there's also an existing stormwater easement along the eastern property boundary, which would make it difficult to provide planting in there and maintain free and clear easement as required. And then there's an existing evergreen buffer on the adjoining property on the west. So for all these reasons, we were asking for some relief as far as the buffering of the sides, the east and west property lines. We are providing buffering on the southern boundary at the rear. I don't know if you can switch to the landscape plan, Nate, maybe just to provide a little more context. So there, as you can see, we are providing the required landscape buffer at the rear of the property and where we can along the eastern boundary, providing some additional shrub and tree plantings. As I mentioned, along the western boundary, there's an existing evergreen buffer on the adjoining property. And a lot of that currently is not buffered from the adjoining property. So we did not see that being an issue. There was also a waiver request related to the planting island within the parking lot. The ordinance requires one island for every 230 feet, I believe, is a requirement. As you can see along the eastern property boundary, we're proposing to provide 2 trees that would be just off the edge of the parking lot in order to maximize the parking within the site. That it was critical to the owner here because of the nature of their business. They have people that are coming in, parking, and then taking the company vehicles out. So we're just trying to maximize as much parking as we could on the site. And an alternative was providing those trees just outside of a landscape island along the border of the parking. And then the other deferment was related similarly to installing curbing and pavement widening along the existing Enterprise Road. As mentioned, DMA had given a requested amount for a fee in lieu for any potential future improvements along the frontage, which the owner has agreed to, and we are listing those deferrals on the plan.
Great, thanks. Anybody have any questions on the modifications as presented?
Excuse me.
Does the first modification of the sidewalks, does it have a fee in lieu of?
Just to clarify, there wasn't a fee in lieu of with that. We simply asked for a grading plan that demonstrated that it could be put in the future with that one. So they would enter into a deferral agreement that would be signed by both parties, recorded, and would be on record in case the township decided to move forward with that in the future.
Okay, no other questions. I'll look for a motion for the modification waiver requests.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of modification requests 2 and 3 and conditional approval of 1 and 4, subject to all staff and engineering comments.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Volpe and a seconded by Mr. Caldis. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it, 5-0. All right, let's move on to the final land development plan. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding the plan as presented? Nobody's online, correct, Nate? Still, I'm sure nobody in the audience has anything they need to say. Yeah, I mean, we've seen it before, so with that, I'll look for a motion for the final land development plan.
I do have one thing in this motion. It's talking about encroaching into the neighboring property. I think this was related to a different
Yeah,
plan.
ignore that.
Yeah.
That was a bad copy and paste job.
Make a motion to recommend approval of the final land event, the development plan for Lancaster Plumbing and Heating, Township File 2210.02, subject to all staff and engineering comments.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Boltby is seconded by Mr. Caldus. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Any old business?
No.
No old business? All right, project report.
Provided that for your guys' information. If you have any questions, let me know.
Public comment. All right, if nothing, then we will adjourn the meeting. You know,
You almost made it.
if I wouldn't have asked him to explain the, we would have
Broken a record?
broken a record.
What is the record?
The
10
record is
minutes,
10 minutes,
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Sorry, I
So
thought I
this
heard
was
that.
12 and a half.
And Keith
Yeah,
Keith
you have to get
Falco was the
some-
one
yeah.
presiding.
We started a couple minutes.
Yeah, you have to get some credit. You got a text amendment and a full plan.
That's true.
Full LD plan.
We could have massaged it a little bit longer.
Nope. Somebody said they had an ice hockey match. They had to go watch down in what, Georgia or something. I think it had a rain delay.
Good, you might get home before.
Rain delay for a hockey.
The old rain delay.
That's what I heard.